Hi everyone. Today we're going to continue working on review topics. We've finished all the new information that I needed you to be introduced to this year, but now it's really important that we go back and focus on some very important topics throughout the year that either you struggled with as a class, where a lot of people struggled, or something that maybe you did and you mastered at the time, but now maybe you've forgotten because it was a lot of just memory and rote and doing it over and over so that you could understand the topic. Or maybe like today, it's something that's going to benefit you for the rest of your math career, no matter how far you go in math or what your next class is, whether it's geometry or pre-calculus. You need to know how to factor. So I started with some reminders. First, you have to decide if there's a greatest common factor. That's always the first step. You look to see, is there a greatest common factor? If the answer is yes, then you factor that out to the front. Once you've done that, if there are 4 terms, you factor by grouping. If there are 3 terms, which is called a trinomial, then we factor using various techniques. For the first method is either the box or slide method, or the traditional where you find factors. The second method is to just graph it on your calculator and find out where it crosses the x-axis, because remember, the x-intercepts are the roots or the solutions. That will give you the solutions, and you have to work backwards to find what that factor is that creates that x-intercept. You can use the quadratic formula, which is given to you on all the standardized testing that you'll take, or you can complete the square if you get one that won't factor, but you can complete the square to make it factor. Today I'm going to focus on some very basic ones, just because I think a lot of you will remember how to do this and you just need to keep practicing. But for those of you who really struggle with just the original solving and factoring, I just want to go through a couple of problems with you. So the first one is m squared plus 2m minus 24. And so we're going to factor. Remember, we want it to look like this. So we're looking for factors of the negative 24 that add to be 2. Okay, so you have to think of what multiplies to be negative 24 and adds to be 2. Well, remember that on a calculator, and I finally did get one, yay, we can go to y equal, type our last number in, negative 24, divided by x, and we can go to the table, which is second graph, and we can find all of the factors of negative 24, and you just want the ones that add to be a positive 2. Well, here I can see that when my bigger number is positive, that's going to give me a positive answer. So I'm just going to start looking. These don't add to be 2. That's negative 10. That's negative 5. That's negative 2. So I'm getting there, but it's negative 2. It needs to be positive 2. Ignore all decimal answers. 6 plus negative 4. There it is. That's a positive 2. So it's a positive 6 and a negative 4. And I'm done. Now, what if you don't like that method? What if you prefer the box method? So what is the box method? Remember, that's working backwards. We usually can put this down one side and this on across, and we can figure out and work to get the original equation. So it's a good way to check your answer. But you can also use the box method trying to get your factors. You put the first term in the first box. You put the last term in the last box. And you put the 2 things that multiply to be negative 24 into these 2 boxes. And we said in this case, 6 and negative 4. So then we look and we say, what do these have in common? Well, they have an m in common. What do these have in common? Well, they have a 6. Then you go across. These have an m, and these are both negative. And when your first one's negative, you're going to want to pull that out there. But they both are divisible by 4. And sure enough, This is m plus 6. And this is m minus 4. And so the box method and the just dividing by using the y equal on your calculator both work. Okay? Now let's look at the second one. This is one where our first term, which is our a, and this one, our a, which is our first term, equaled 1. So there was no number here because it was 1. But now we actually have to factor with our first term not being 1. And this is where you use the box or slide method. So a lot of you like to use the slide method. But first, let's look at this. Is this kind of odd? We don't have a b squared. Over here we had m squared, m, and no letter at all. But if you look here, there's a b in every term. So that's actually a greatest common factor. So we're going to factor that to the front. Well, we pulled out one of the b's, so we still have 3b squared because b times 3b squared is 3b to the third minus 5b plus 2. So I just factored one of the b's out to the front, and now every term has one less b. So now we can get to the point where we have a regular trinomial, so we're just going to factor. All right, so that's what our final answer should look like. Well, if we use the slide method, then we're going to just take the 3. Let me recopy it right here. Okay, we're going to take the 3 and we're going to slide it back here and multiply. So we get b squared minus 5b, and then 3 times 2 is 6. Now we're going to factor just like the top one that we just factored up here, right? We're going to do the same thing. So we want factors of 6 that add to be negative 5. So we have b, and we're going to go to here. Go to y equals, and we're going to type in this number, so 6, and 6 divided by x, go to the table. All right, so we want factors of 6 that add to be negative 5. Well, these are all positive. So those are never going to add to be negative 5. This has to be negative 7. If we go towards the negatives, if you can see that, that adds to be negative 5. Look at that, negative 2 and negative 3. So negative 2 and negative 3. And again, you can use the box method, but on these where there's no number in front, it makes it easier to just even do the last term divided by x. So now we factored that, but you've got to remember that we had to use the slide method, so we're not done. So you remember this 3 that we slid? Well, now we have to go back and divide all of our numbers by that 3. Now here, these don't divide, so we're going to have to slide back in front of b and get 3b minus 2. And then this is awesome because 3 divided by 3 is just 1. So we don't have to slide anything. So now we've used the slide method, and we can now put this over in our answer where we already had pulled that b out to the front. That's still part of our answer. So if you were to FOIL these back together and then multiply the whole thing by b, you would get your answer. So it's really important that everyone practices. Today I did a red, yellow, and green because you really do need to practice at the level where you feel comfortable. If you try the red and you feel like those are not challenging, go to yellow. If you try yellow and you feel like you could go even more, try green. If you end up doing just, 1 or 2 from each, then that's fine. But I want you to push yourself. So either do all red, all yellow, or all green, or mix it up and maybe start with red and do 2 of them and then go to green and do 2 more. Yellow and then green, just kind of get a total of, I'd like to see you do at least 4 problems. Red and yellow, I actually assigned 6. Green, I assigned 4 because they take longer. They just take a little bit longer, so I gave fewer problems. But just try to work through those. Do either red, yellow, or green, or mix it up. If you throw a green in there, then you just need to do 4. If you're sticking with red and yellow, that's fantastic, but try to do 6 of them. All right, if you need any additional help, reach out to me. I'm always available. I'm also available today from 2 to 2:30 for my office hours. Have a great day.